What the hell are we supposed to use, man? Harsh language?
Hey, welcome back, Marvin.
Yeah.
Hey, it's good to be back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
Yep.
How's everybody doing?
It used to be my resubscription sound on Twitch.
Oh, that's right, it was.
My streaming days. Yeah.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Yep.
How are we all doing?
Good.
Doing good now.
Now? What happened?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what happened. I had a crazy thing happen to me called testicular torsion. My nuts was twisted up in the game, basically.
My greatest fear.
My left nut specifically. The right one was chilling.
So hold up. Now, this isn't funny, but the funny thing about this is, not 2 days prior to you telling us this, I was telling Owen and the poker guys that I play poker with about a friend of mine that I grew up with who had his balls twisted.
Yep.
And it's just a bizarre... I think I cursed you.
Maybe.
I put it out into the universe and then it just happened to somebody else.
Here. Yeah.
It's possible.
How painful was it? Like scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst.
I don't know. I've never had a very painful experience, so it's hard to compare because I never had like a broken bone or some shit. So, but this is definitely the most painful thing that I've experienced.
Damn. Well, we don't have to dwell on it, but how does this happen? I need to know so it doesn't happen to me.
They don't know.
It could be from an accident, or it could just be from sleeping the wrong way.
Exercise.
God,
you could just be walking down the sidewalk.
I was looking into it. There's this thing called, I think it's called bell clapper deformity, where your testicle is like not in one place as it should be, where it's just kind of rotating freely.
Didn't properly drop.
It did properly drop. Yeah.
Come on, listen to his voice, bro. That's the voice of drop balls. That deep and sultry voice.
I don't know exactly. I don't know if I had that, but yeah, it's fixed now. They stitched them to the fucking sack now, so we're good. No more movement.
They just went in there and fucking stapled the shit, the carpet staples and shit.
Yep.
Damn. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is not something I would wish on my worst enemy, I feel like.
Do some sitting on an inner tube every time you got up to sit down. They give you an inflatable.
Oh, like a hemorrhoid cushion?
Nah.
Damn.
It wasn't too bad. I just had to keep my legs like super wide open. I had to sleep on my back for a few days.
How do you control that?
Usually a side sleeper.
Yeah, how do you control that, like, once you're sleeping? I mean, I guess you'd feel in pain if you just rolled over.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Whew. Well, I don't believe in a higher power, but if there is one, please don't let that shit happen to me. Because that's scary as fuck. Sounds painful.
Yeah, I think it's pretty rare in adults. It's usually just,
juveniles.
Well, like, adults over, like, 25 is what they said.
You got that full dissension as an adult, so
yeah, you would have already had it by now.
That makes sense. Interesting. Well, glad you're feeling better. I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yep.
I'm glad you're stapled up and it won't ever happen again.
Yep.
How have you been, Dusty?
Good. Played the Diablo.
Oh yeah.
Closed beta this weekend. Open beta next weekend.
Okay. That comes out soon, right?
June, I think.
Okay.
Watched some show. I really haven't watched any new shows. I did watch the Boston Strangler today, actually, just before we recorded. It was
movie or
yeah, it's a Netflix movie. Keira Knightley, Carrie Coon, Chris Cooper. I would say that I think Summer Sam is probably a better, more thrilling story.
You're popping.
It's
popping.
It's a good story. I forgot apparently
you're good.
The power breaker popped today and I forgot to reset.
Would it just go out?
It just flipped. I don't know.
Loretta McLaughlin. Oh, okay.
1 second.
No, you're good.
Okay. That should fix that. But yeah, that was a pretty good movie. Interesting story, I guess, more than.
Oh, this is Hulu.
Oh, is it Hulu? I thought it was Netflix.
That's what it says on the. Wait, you didn't watch it on Netflix?
I don't remember what I watched it on. You know, all the apps.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. But yeah, it was all right. You know, like I said, Summer Sam is probably a more thrilling tale of a serial killer, but it's Boston Strangler.
Summer of Sam.
Yeah.
Summer of Sam's a weird one. I like that movie, but I like that movie. It's less about the case than I would have, like, as an adult now would like to see. Like, you know,
Right.
I like murder mystery type of movies. And it wasn't really that. Like, Son of Sam is really just like the setting for the movie. It's really a drama about these people.
That's kind of what this is. It's
Yeah.
more like, you know, Keira Knightley plays the reporter who tells the story, uncovers it, and it's more about following her around as she uncovers it. So nothing like too thrilling or suspenseful, but interesting story nonetheless.
Yeah, I prefer a movie more along the lines of like Zodiac. That's more my style.
Yeah, Zodiac's good too.
Because Zodiac was like about the investigation, you know, and I really like that. And I thought, well, I mean, that's you know, okay, that's an unfair comparison because it's what's his name, David Fincher. So I mean, whatever. But great movie nonetheless. That's more my speed. I have some cool information, not really pertaining to movies or television shows, but cool nonetheless. It's about YouTube, and since we do the YouTube thing, I feel like you guys would be interested in hearing about this story. Dusty, you were actually, I don't know if you heard it, but I was telling Owen about it the other night. So as you guys know, I am in the reef keeping hobby. I have a fish tank with coral in there and some fish and stuff like that. And when I first got into the hobby like 4 or 5 years ago, you know, I do what millennials and Zoomers do right away and look up information online about pertaining to like the hobby. It's just trying to get information. The thing about the hobby that sucks for me, I don't like about it, and it's whatever. It's just there's so much information out there. So you talk to normal people and you know, you say, oh, I want to do a reef tank, and everybody's always like, oh man, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. You know, like it's a lot of work. It's really not. It's actually pretty simple. The hard part about it is gaining good information, because everybody and their mother who's been in the hobby for years has a different way of doing essentially the same thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So that's really the hard part. And I'm the type of person that I just want to be told how to do something and then I'll do it. But anyway, I had found videos from this YouTube content creator who's from New York, and he just had a lot of information. And at the time, I didn't realize, but his channel was basically dead. He hadn't made videos in like 5 or 6 years. Now it's been about 10 years he hasn't made videos. So, but like 2012, 2011, I think was his last video. But I came to find out as I got more into the hobby that this guy is like very well known and respected in the hobby, because he's like one of the first people who was making content in the hobby about like reef keeping and stuff. And yeah, he really is. And he recently resurfaced like within the last couple weeks, and he kicked his channel back off, and he, you know, opened up with a video about like why he went away. And it turns out he had some issues. His mom passed away, and he had to look after his disabled brother. So he had to like take a leave of absence from his job, and he couldn't really care for his tank, so he had to take it down. And man, the support that he's getting coming back is like insane. It's so cool to see, because like he's getting like a ton of messages on his videos like, wow, I fucking have watched your videos for years, like while you weren't even making content, and you helped me so much. And like, I don't know, it's just really cool to see him back. And you know,
those are some of the best YouTube channels, like the hobbyists that actually document it and just post it. And people can find that shit and find it helpful. You may not even know that you're being instructional, but you're just showing shit. Man, I love those types of channels.
Yeah, I mean, I find it cool because A, like I'm happy for the guy, but B, like you kind of forget the way YouTube was back before it like really blew up and became what it is today. Like with people just like making videos.
Well, what's the oldest like big YouTube channel you remember?
Big? I don't know, honestly. because I never
you
used to
guys
spend a
don't-
lot of
don't-
time on YouTube.
I would say the Young Turks and Epic Mealtime are the two that I think stand out the most for me. Those
Yeah.
two were like huge in the 2000s.
Like back then, I didn't even really go on YouTube other than to look at just like
Yeah.
funny videos, people doing like hurting
Just got a
themselves and shit.
notification that I've been on Twitter for 13 years. I was like, oh, really? That's
Yeah.
so somebody
that sounds about
that's
right.
born today can actually sign up for Twitter.
Right.
Or 13 years ago.
But yeah, like now the way YouTube is, and again, like we make YouTube videos, so we talk about it, and it's just like it's no longer just like, oh, I'm gonna make a video. You have to like actually be not strategic, but like you have to like do it in a certain way. Like you gotta have the right thumbnail, or you gotta, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's from a time when
You
like
don't
that didn't
have
happen.
to,
No, you
but-
don't. But I mean, there's a bit of it if you want to be
There's
successful.
definitely a meta for uploading
Yeah.
YouTube videos that
Yeah.
helps.
So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a cool story. I'm glad that he's back and like everybody's super jazzed and like people were like trying to get him, like trying to get. There's two really big companies that make pretty popular like pre-built tanks, I guess you would say. It's like full systems where you just get everything that you would need. Not everything, but and people were like trying to like get in touch with these companies to get him like a free tank to get started again and like all this shit.
Oh.
Because he's just like a big ambassador to the hobby, so it would be like beneficial for them to get somebody like him on their side. Like this guy has literally either inspired or helped like tons of people in the hobby before like the internet and social media was like really a thing. So it's like kind of cool. He still uses Facebook. Like he's like, oh, I posted some shit on Facebook talking about, and it's like, hey, bro, nobody uses Facebook anymore. Sorry, you gotta get,
Yeah.
you gotta get on
You
TikTok.
gotta make a TikTok and start
Yeah, yeah.
dancing with your fucking reef.
Yeah.
Once the advertisers get their hooks in, general user count starts dwindling a little bit.
I just thought it was funny because I've told you guys this too, and I used to sit around with like Elias and some of my other friends. We used to just hang out and play video games, and like funny shit would happen, and like I would always be like, "Yo, guys, we should make like a YouTube channel. We should make a YouTube channel. Like it seems like it's gonna be big." We of course never did because I'm sitting
Yep.
here talking to you guys, and I'm not in a fucking yacht somewhere. But like, you know, I don't know. It's just crazy that like how like the trajectory that it took.
Well, maybe one day we'll be recording this show from a yacht.
That'd be great. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel, folks. If you're listening and you're
No.
on YouTube, hit that sub button.
Yeah, would be cool.
Yeah.
I would just be glad to record in person.
Oh yeah, that'd be the best part about it. Actually,
Absolutely.
get that sick ass fucking production
Studio.
value. Oh yeah,
I don't need a yacht. I got
Yeah.
low standards.
we could kick Joe Rogan out of his studio. Be like, fuck out of here, talking about crop circles and shit. We got movies to talk about, buddy.
Yeah.
Nah, but yeah. So that was a cool story. Yeah. Anything else going on with you guys?
No,
No.
not much.
How about the news, Dusty? What about real news? Which, before you get into it, I have my own piece of news,
All right.
which I messaged you guys about, and you guys rudely ignored. But I'm so
What?
fucking excited. One of my favorite shows of all time
Oh yeah.
is getting a revival movie. Monk, baby. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that the other day. I just about jumped through the ceiling. It is such a fucking good show and good character, and he won so many fucking awards for this show and this character. Tony
Huh.
Shalhoub did. Oh man, I cannot wait, dude. I'm so excited.
Maybe I
I'm
need
so
to watch
happy.
the show.
I
You know, I never watched it ever.
I
So
thought
I couldn't
about.
share your excitement, so maybe that's why I ignored it. I was like, oh, okay, that means absolutely nothing to me.
Oh, okay. I thought about.
And I didn't want to be like, oh, okay, that's cool, and then like
Yeah, fuck off.
fuck up
then.
your yeah.
I saw a headline and I thought about writing it down, but I knew you'd probably want to talk about it. So I didn't
Mhm.
want you to snipe me. So I figured I'd just leave it for you if you wanted to talk about it.
Thank you. I thought about. I thought about whether or not you would like it. I don't know if you will. You would have to
Monk's
watch
a
a
good
couple of.
show.
It is a great show, but it's not a show I think Marvin would be used to. It's like very network television. It used to be on like USA. And
Yeah.
USA's put out some bangers. What are you talking about?
yeah, but you know how I always say I hate network television? This is the type of show that I would generally hate.
Right.
Like fucking yeah.
But
That's
the
cable
CSI or some shit.
television.
yeah, exactly like CSI. But this is
When I think of network television, I think of something different. This is cable television.
yeah, but it's still like it's got that style. Like
Yeah, it's a 24 episode type.
we've talked
a
about
season.
this a lot, but like shows nowadays, like the good ones, have a more cinematic approach to them, like Breaking Bad or Better Call
Yeah.
Saul. These types of shows, Yellowstone. This is like a very network television structured show. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But no, the defective detective is back. And if you thought he was a germaphobe before, imagine what he's like after living through a pandemic. So Marvin, just to fill you in a little bit,
That's funny.
the show was about Adrian Monk. He's like the world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
And he's no longer a detective because he had a nervous breakdown after the death of his wife, who was a journalist. And the death of his wife is the only case he's ever been unable to solve. It's like his Achilles heel, right? But he's so good at being a detective. The reason he's a great detective is because he suffers from crippling OCD and like
Yeah.
millions of other phobias and paranoias and stuff like that. So he has such an insane attention to detail that he notices like little things that nobody else does. So the show is like really fun in that way because each show is usually like a different case, and he gets called into the department as like a consultant because he's so good, and he'll always point out these like little things that nobody else sees, obviously, and then he solves the case.
Yeah.
But just him, it's just such a funny show, and Tony Shalhoub is an amazing actor, and the part is fucking so great, and it has 22 wins and 47 total nominations. It's won 8 Primetime Emmy Awards, so it's like a pretty dominant show that when it aired. But for me, funny story, I've in the past dabbled with my share of anxiety, as most people probably have, right? But at the time, in my early 20s, when I first started like dealing with anxiety, I didn't really understand fully what it was that I was dealing with. So
after you hit a fat J and you were fucking stuck in the chair.
No, it wasn't that, but it became it was just like I don't know what happened. One day I just like got anxious and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like freaking the fuck out. And then it just became like me getting anxious about being anxious, really is what it was. And it became like a self-fulfilling prophecy because I would like work myself up into thinking I was going to get anxiety, and then I would get anxiety. So funny enough, this might sound stupid, but when I discovered the show, it was around the same time, and I would watch it, and in a weird way, it like made me feel better because I was like, well, if this guy has all these fucking ailments and is like the greatest detective, like I could live normal life, like
relatable.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I don't know. This, go ahead.
Yeah, if he could do it, I'm fine. I'm chilling. I just got a little anxiety.
Yeah, fuck it. Like whatever.
I really struggled with anxiety.
You haven't really? You said
no.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah, that's because you're a different breed.
I never had like debilitating anxiety, but you know, luckily nowadays, like as I've gotten older, I've learned to sort of like deal with it. I don't really get anxiety anymore, and if there's ever like an anxious thought in my head, it's just kind of fleeting. I'm able to like self-talk, I guess they call it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm so excited for this. I can't wait. I hope it's good. Because
I'll check out the show.
Yeah, watch like a couple episodes, see what you think. I mean,
I think you should have saved this news as it would have been a great segue into our topic.
It would have been a great segue actually because
both
well
both shows
also
have ended and
and also maybe certain things
save the damn news for the end.
Maybe certain shows shouldn't make standalone movies after their runs are done, but we'll get into that later. So what do you got for us, Dusty? Hit us.
Not a lot of news for WB. They've been relatively quiet, except for maybe the cryptic Zack Snyder social media.
Oh my God, yeah.
I see that it stirred up controversy. Basically a teaser trailer with the voice of Darkseid saying save the date. I think the date was like April 28th to the 30th. A lot of people think because he's reportedly signed a multi-year deal with Netflix that maybe the Snyderverse will continue to live. Not the case. Zack Snyder is doing like a screening of all 3 of his DCEU movies, one per day. First 2 at the Art College Design in Pasadena, and the third at an undisclosed IMAX theater. So that's like,
So it's nothing crazy.
that's nothing crazy. He's just screening the movies. But
We
yeah, he did
know-
sign a multi-year deal with Netflix. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe Zaslav will allow some IP to slip in there. We'll see. But he's trying to turn his movie, his Star Wars-esque type movie, but Dark Moon or whatever, the New Moon, I forget what it's called.
Right. What were you gonna say, Marvin?
Rogue Moon, Rebel Moon, that's what it is.
Oh, I never heard of that.
He's trying to turn that into a franchise.
I can see. What were you gonna say, Marvin? You were gonna say something. Or did you forget already?
No, I was gonna say, well, we know that those fans don't like to show up to movies anyway, so
Yeah,
True.
seems like a waste of time.
Let me tell you
That's
something though.
true.
Good for him though.
No,
Yeah.
fuck him. I made the joke the other day. This dude is like Donald Trump, okay? Because he knows who his fucking audience is and he like incites them, right?
Plays him like a fiddle.
You know, he really does. Because why would you tweet something so cryptic knowing what would happen? You know that there's this like restore the Snyderverse bullshit, sell it to Netflix,
Oh,
all
yeah.
this shit. And his first tweet was a voiceover of fucking
Dark Side, yeah.
Darkseid, who's like the big villain. He's like the Thanos of the DCEU, basically, Marvin. And it was like,
Save the date.
yeah, it was like some random shit, and it was like, save the date, April something. So people were flipping out, like, wow, what's gonna happen? And it's like, you know what you're doing, dude. Like, he knows what he's doing. It's
Yeah.
It's
funny,
good
man.
marketing.
Yeah, it is good marketing.
Good marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's
Too bad
good.
they won't show up anyway.
Yeah, too bad.
Good
Fucking,
marketing.
too bad. Fucking James Gunn is gonna eat this motherfucker's lunch.
Well, we
Mhm.
reported that when James Gunn took over, they had talks with Ben Affleck, and I think it was Peter Safran that said, we'd love to have him direct a DC movie. Well, he cleared the air up on that with an interview with Hollywood Reporter. He basically said, I would not direct something for the James Gunn DC. Absolutely not. I have nothing against James Gunn. Nice guy. Sure, he's doing a great job. But he went on to basically talk about how Justice League was a college seminar on how not why you shouldn't make a movie like that because of the production and all. Just he said it was one of the worst experiences of his life was making that movie. So
Damn.
he's done with the DC for a while at least. He's doesn't want to direct
That-
for him.
That was Ben Affleck that said that? Or
Yeah,
who was
Ben.
that? Okay.
That was Ben. Yeah, he was talking a lot of shit about
Well,
his
rightfully
experience
so.
with Justice League.
He had
He
a
said
rough.
he basically said, yeah, I mean, he basically said I was gonna direct a Batman film. The Justice League got me in the door, so I did it. And
I mean, he wrote
just a
and
terrible
he
experience.
wrote the script.
Yeah.
And was supposed to direct it. The Batman movie,
Mhm.
Marvin, that we watched way back when, our first episode.
Yep.
That was his movie.
Mhm.
It was supposed to be his movie, and it was called The Batman. I don't know if Matt, whatever his name, Matt Reeves.
Reeves.
I don't know if he kept Ben Affleck's script or rewrote it or what part. I don't know.
I would imagine there were some major changes.
Yeah,
but
no,
some
for
of it
sure.
may have
But the
been-
title stayed the same, and the concept of it stayed the same in terms of it being like a standalone Batman film. I feel bad for Ben Affleck. He's a fucking really good director,
he is.
and you know, like I'm sure he was excited about it to play the part, and like you're getting a chance to fucking direct and be in a movie. You're playing like literally an icon, like a
One of the most iconic characters.
yeah.
in the
We
world.
talk about this all the time. Batman is arguably bigger and more popular than Superman. Like
Yeah.
there is.
You could take both symbols around, and some places would know one or
I-
the other. But
I
anyone-
honestly think if there was some sort of scientific way to do it, I think Batman would be like the most popular comic book character, like forever and always. Like that's just how it is. And it's like, and he got fucked because the studio and all the stuff we've talked about over the last several months. It's like, I don't know, I feel bad for him. Anyway, I don't blame him for his feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really it for the WB news.
Yeah.
I guess we'll save that more. We'll go
Ooh.
up to Disney. Victoria Alonso is officially out. Now, we reported on her before.
Yeah.
I think when I talked about it, there were rumblings that she might be out. She's officially gone.
Who's this?
Basically, Victoria Alonso. She's the president of physical post-production, VFX, and animation for Marvel Studios.
Okay.
She's basically the reason behind all the shitty CGI and all the Marvel movies, and all the reasons why some VFX companies won't work with Disney, and the reason why the Marvel had to like in-house their own VFX studio because of the just toxic work environment that they created by overworking, underpaying, and threatening to end careers. So she's finally gone.
That's good.
They stopped the blood loss. So
Yeah.
yeah, we were talking about that a little bit.
Bro,
Maybe She-Hulk CGI will be better next time we see it.
Maybe.
I just looked up. I just Googled her just to look up some stuff, and like the first headline, and it's not even relevant to the article. I feel like it's just a clickbait headline, which it is shocker: queer woman of color Victoria Alonso exits Marvel Studios. Like, but I'm skimming the article. It has nothing to do with anything in the article. It's basically saying what you just said. Is like, oh yeah, she's leaving.
She's been with Disney for like 17 years, I want to say, and she's with Marvel since about 2005, so pretty close to the beginning. And she worked her way up, and they put her in charge of VFX, and then she ran it into the ground. And now they're scrambling to try and fix all that. But I guess this is the colloquial "don't let the door hit you,"
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know whether you consider that sad news, but we do have some sad news. The Disney Plus adaptation of Percy Jackson and the Olympians
I didn't even know
is
that
going to be one of Lance Reddick's final actual roles. They finished filming that, so it's still going to come out. I think it's coming out in the fall sometime. Lance Reddick, obviously best known for The Fringe, Lost, The Wire, John Wick. He was Commander Zavala in Destiny.
Yep.
He was in Horizon expansion game. Well-known actor, well-loved actor. Died of natural causes, apparently. Don't know what that is. He was out touring for John Wick 4 just recently. So,
what does natural causes mean? And I'm not saying this to be funny. Like,
he was not struck by a vehicle or murdered.
Okay, so like a heart attack.
His body gave up. Yeah, like he could have.
Heart attack, cancer, those would be considered natural causes. Because I've always considered natural causes to just be like, oh, he got old and died.
Right.
Okay.
If something in your body ceases to function and you die as a result, it's natural.
That's fair.
Versus unnatural, which is...
That sucked. He was a presence on screen.
Yeah, he was.
He had
Great.
like a...
so good.
Yeah.
First
I forgot.
time I saw him was actually in Oz.
Oh, really? I was going to assume
Oz is another great one.
He was a cop, and he went undercover in the prison.
I remember that.
Yeah, he was great.
Yep. R.I.P.
Yep.
Speaking of rest in peace, earlier this week, it was reported by Deadline, I believe, that Willow had been canceled after one season.
Saw that.
Now, you guys have not watched this. I watched it. It was a little bit nostalgic, a little bit frustrating, a little bit upsetting. It was not the greatest show, but not the worst.
Right.
But maybe the rumors of it being canceled were premature. Willow creator and showrunner Jonathan Kasdan elaborated, I think, on social media saying the show hasn't been canceled and that volume 2 has already been written. The decision was to release. Basically, what they were doing is releasing the contractual holds they had on some of the actors and actresses to pursue other things because some of the actors they had did not have the same contractual engagements. And we do know that Zaslav and Disney are toning down the amount of content, especially digital streaming. He says it's already written. It's at least 12 plus months out. So they're not going to hold the actors and force them to sit around and wait. If they want to go do something else, they can, which may delay volume 2 even further. But the report that it was canceled may not actually be accurate. It may just be temporarily shelved while they adjust the spigot to the volume of content that they release.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Cancel it. You didn't even watch it.
It's all right. It's too much stuff.
Sure did.
Never will.
That's fair. That's
Listen,
fair.
one
All right.
less thing means everything else gets a little bit better. You would hope.
That's right.
Okay.
You would hope.
I will murder
this-
Willow for the sake of everything else.
The MCU? Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
This is a big allegedly. Secret Wars is
Oh.
going to be split into 2 parts, just like Infinity Wars and Endgame.
Yep, I could have seen that coming.
Infinity Wars was the 10-year anniversary, making 2028 the 20-year anniversary. They don't have anything scheduled for that. I think the Kang Dynasty comes out 2025. So we'll have 2026 with no Avengers movie, then maybe 2027 and 2028 with the 2-part Secret Wars is what it looks like it's going to play out. So the 20-year anniversary will have a big Avengers movie and celebrate, and, you know, all
Okay.
that good stuff. But that's
Milk
just
me.
an alleged, maybe not. It could still just be a 1-parter, but it's, you know, if they want to make billion-dollar movies, they'll split them up like that.
Oh, yeah. They'll milk the shit out of it. They can milk me as long as they're good. Take my money. I don't give a fuck. But don't make me see none of that fucking Ant-Man shit ever again, please.
Ooh.
And the final piece of Disney news, we're going to go to Star Wars. One Take News reports that the Daniels will be directing at least 1 episode of Star Wars Skeleton Crew.
Oh.
Now, the Daniels are obviously Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, who directed the Oscar-winning movie Everything Everywhere All at Once.
That's right.
No word on whether they're directing more than 1 episode, but they are apparently, allegedly taking part in it. The series takes place after the Return of Jedi, and it was pitched as basically, I think, a galactic version of a classic Emblem Entertainment coming-of-age adventure film of the 80s type. Co-creator John Watts actually pitched the idea of Skeleton Crew to Jon Favreau during No Way Home production.
Okay.
And he liked the idea, so it's coming forward. So it looks like this may be one of those Star Wars stories that you actually like, Dan, and that it probably has nothing to do with the lore, the canon. It's just somebody in the Star Wars universe,
Yep.
coming of age story that
Give
just
me
takes
more
place
of
in the
that.
universe. So you got
Give-
so Skeleton Crew looks like I mean, you know, after winning seven Oscars, those directors are going to be hot. Everybody's going to want to work with them.
Yep.
Everything they touch,
True.
people are going to be like, "This is fire." So
Maybe they'll get a Marvel
that's going to
movie.
be the thing going around. Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
Oh man, that would be so sick.
They basically
never
directed
know.
a comic book movie, so I mean,
Yeah.
listen. Mandalorian has proved you could do that. You could tell a story about a nobody. Has nothing to do with the lore, but has a little bit to do with the lore, but not really that
Well,
much.
it's getting deep in the lore now, deep in it, and that's probably why I
Well,
think you don't like it.
No.
'Cause I'm enjoying it, but it's getting deep in the lore.
Well, I don't
Gotta see it still.
I don't like the fact that it's becoming very formulaic is my thing. Last episode
Sure.
broke that formula quite a bit with what they did, and I did enjoy it. And I understand that now they are obviously trying to connect it a little bit to the newest trilogy in certain ways, which makes sense if you're going to move the plot, like if you're going to move the universe forward. They can't make everything take place after Return of the Jedi and in between. Like they got to.
Well, and we'll see old characters show up too, like
Yeah.
stuff from the
No, I'm sure.
Star Wars Rebels, the animated show, like Sabine
Yeah.
Wren is a Mandalorian.
Listen,
She's gonna show up, but she's like a youngster, and she like, you know, does
Yes.
the whole.
I'm
spray
fine with a little
painter
bit of lore.
stuff.
That's cool. Little tie-ins, great. Easter eggs, awesome. Luke in spoilers in Mandalorian for like 5 minutes. Sorry, Marvin. Like awesome. But we don't need a fucking Han Solo movie. We don't need a fucking Chewbacca movie. We don't need a Yoda show. We don't need a fucking this. Like let the characters rest. Like enough. New characters.
Yeah, but I mean, and you know,
New
not
good
to
characters.
Get into a debate about it, but if you're gonna have a Star Wars show, you want it to connect to the overall story arc somehow,
No.
and that story arc has to continue.
No, but the story arc doesn't. Now you started a debate. See, the story arc doesn't have to be the Skywalker story. That story's done. That's what I meant. Everything involving the Skywalkers is over. You could still connect to the overall. Obviously,
Well, we're still telling stories in those timelines, though. So there has to be like even if it's a finite thread, there still has to be some sort of connection to.
Well, that's what I just
this
said.
person. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, all right.
You know,
yeah,
Luke
so we
is
don't
mentioned
disagree too
here or
much.
there. Oh man, Luke Skywalker,
Right.
he's fucking building a Jedi temple. Like, what's going on? Like, maybe in this particular story,
Or some kid that just runs into him one
Sure.
time and
Yeah,
he does
exactly.
another 5-minute cameo.
yeah, little
that's it.
nods, Easter eggs, little references, cross references, but you don't need it to be the main focus. Is what I was saying. The way the new trilogy was, like, why did that have to happen? You know what I mean?
All right, well. That's all the Disney news we have. We're on to the everything else. And
My name is Ray Skywalker. Like, what? Sorry, go ahead.
This one's a doozy. Mike Flanagan,
Oh, my boy.
who's making the new Dark Tower for Amazon,
Yep. Big
Who's
Mike.
Mike Flanagan
just
again?
rips into the Dark Tower.
Mike Flanagan did the Netflix shows The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Blight Manor, which was the second season, different story. And then he did Midnight Mass, which was amazing. And most recently, The Midnight Club. Was it The Midnight Club? I told you guys to watch it, but you didn't.
Yep. Hey, you told me to watch a lot of things.
I know. And you're doing a good job.
Hard to.
No, you've been doing good. I can't complain. The Midnight Club, yeah. Yeah, no, he's fucking fan-fucking-tastic, Marvin. He's one of my favorite guys going. Most notably, he loves Stephen King. He directed Gerald's Game, which is an adaptation of Stephen King's book.
I saw that.
And he directed Dr. Sleep. And I had said this on one episode. What an amazing job he did with that movie, because he had to stay faithful to Stephen King's version of the story of The Shining.
Yep.
And then also stay true to the movie The Shining, which is obviously a cultural phenomenon and like one of the most popular horror movies ever made.
Because Stephen King hated.
Stephen King hated it, and it's very different from the book. So with Dr. Sleep, the sequel, he had to like blend both of those things together, and he did a great job doing it. So
kudos to him. That's fucking hard.
Oh yeah. So sorry, Dusty. What do you got?
No, you're fine. No, that was great.
He also
I didn't write down
hang on
all the detail. Go ahead. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
real quick. 2 good movies he's done too. Hush, great movie, and Before I Wake, another pretty good movie. Yeah, Hush was really good. Hush is about a deaf and mute writer who's living in the woods in like this solitary life. She's basically being stalked by some killer. But it's really cool because she's deaf and mute, so she can't really communicate or hear her assailant. So it's like a very interesting take on like a slasher type of movie.
Yeah.
And Before I Wake is pretty cool too. But yeah, I'm sorry. Now continue, Dusty. My bad.
Well, he didn't have some very nice things to say about the Dark Tower.
Really?
Yeah. So basically, this is what he says. He says, my Dark Tower adaptation couldn't be more different from the movie.
Oh, the movie, not the books.
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
I was nervous for a second.
That was the wrong approach to the material kind of across the board. And it was such the wrong approach that I think it kind of salted the earth for anyone who wanted to plant something under the Dark Tower banner for who knows how long. But that's what we're running into trying to get the show going is, the movie did an enormous amount of damage to the potential of getting another iteration up.
I agree.
Which the 2017 movie with McConaughey and
Idris Elba.
Came out in 2017, and Amazon actually had a Dark Tower series ordered in 2017. The movie did so bad they canceled it and didn't do anything with it. So he goes on to talk about how like I'm working for Amazon and me having to go to them and say, hey, I know you tried to do the Dark Tower once and you didn't do it. And I know the movie was garbage, but would you be interested in doing a Dark Tower series? And they said, yeah. So he's going to try and he's going to try and fix it. So whether he has the right direction or not, we'll see. But
just to clarify for you guys and perhaps the audience who isn't aware, the Dark Tower has been in hell for years. It's been trying to be adapted. What's his name was originally attached to doing the movies. Fucking the dude from the Happy Days. Who's that guy?
The Fonz?
The director? No, Ron Howard. Ron Howard was developing a Dark Tower trilogy, I think, and he was attached to it for a very long time. And the plan was to do 3 films with a series in between. So like 1 season in between each film. Because The Dark Tower is like fucking 12 books and it's like so much content. The movie that got made is absolute dog shit. So I don't blame Mike Flanagan for saying that. I thought you were talking about he was talking shit on the books for a minute. I was like,
he was
shit.
trashing the movie.
Yeah, for sure. Even Stephen King said it was dog shit. But like, the interesting thing though, and you see why like Netflix, we joke about them making a deal with Zack Snyder and stuff. But I'm bet this is why, because Mike Flanagan clearly has pumped out some successful shit for them. So much so that Amazon sniped his ass to make stuff for them now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just goes to show like how good his stuff is.
Stephen King kind of did it to himself when he set up there's like a foundation where like you can pay $1 and you can get the rights to make a movie of one of his stories. It is like it costs $1 to make. So you just have to, have the story, maybe the cast and the production, and to pitch it to a production company and say, hey,
yeah,
let's do this Stephen King story. You could pay $1. Anybody could do that. So
I mean,
maybe that's why some of the Stephen King movies have sucked over the years. The miniseries, the
you
movies.
Say some.
Really any good.
You say some. Nearly every Stephen King adaptation is bad, with a handful of exceptions.
Yeah,
really is what it boils down to. So
all
yeah, all right. Well, I'm excited for that. I forgot actually that was happening, but I'm very excited about that. But we'll see if I live to 10 years from now when it's going to come out.
Yep. And positive news, Ghostbusters sequel has begun filming. McKenna Grace, Finn Wolfhard, and Paul Rudd are returning. They posted a tweet back in the firehouse, ready to go day one.
Nice.
So filming is underway for that one. So maybe we'll get it next year sometime, maybe the year after, who knows.
That's pretty quick turnaround.
Yeah.
I still didn't see the first one.
Really?
The original Ghostbusters?
Hey, no, he has not seen Afterlife.
Okay.
I don't know if I've seen the original Ghostbusters. I told you that.
You did, yeah. And I'm just as outraged now as I was when you said it the first time. It's going on the list next month. No, yeah. I've said it many times. That movie is like the bar setter for like how to revive an old franchise and make a sequel 30 years after the fact. Perfect movie.
Right.
I wonder if any of the original cast is going to come back, if they have any interest. I would imagine, what's his name would?
Most of the cast is returning.
No, I'm talking about the OG cast. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson. I don't know that Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd would have any interest because they did what they had to do in the first one.
Yep.
But Ernie Hudson was kind of like left hanging at the end of that because like he set them up with like the finance, like he's the financial backer. So I wonder how they would go.
I imagine we'll see him in the firehouse if they're doing the whole Ghostbusters.
Last time you talked about this though, you said Jason Reitman's not directing it this time, right? He's just writing it.
Right.
That I'm a little concerned for, but whatever. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
All right. Cameron Diaz, who had once retired from acting.
I saw this.
Apparently was talked out of retirement by Jamie Foxx to do Netflix's Back in Action. Apparently, allegedly, it was reported that Jamie had a meltdown on the set. People got fired. It was very uncomfortable. She's going to finish her duties for the film and then retire again. She's done with acting. She's done with the drama. So
Cameron Diaz is.
Yeah, Cameron Diaz. So Netflix is Back in Action with her and Jamie Foxx. It'll be the last thing you see her in, allegedly.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I've never really heard many stories about Jamie Foxx being that bad or hard to work with, but I guess he melted down on the set and fired some people.
About what?
This is his...
For which movie?
Back in Action, the movie that he's doing with Cameron Diaz, the one she came out of retirement for.
Huh, that's weird. I don't know. I never heard anything about him either.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like a Hollywood
maybe he just snapped.
Rumor
maybe.
Piece. Maybe, yeah. I mean,
listen,
the Tom Cruise snapped about trying to save Hollywood and people need to wear their mask and stuff. And, he did save Hollywood according to...
Making movies is a stressful business. So everybody snaps every now and then. I just want to add a little bit to the Ghostbusters story real quick because I was reading about it while you were talking about Cameron Diaz. But the movie's actually called Ghostbusters Hell's Kitchen. and it has a set release date of December 20th, 2023. So it's close. I didn't even realize it was like this close.
Oh, nice.
And
This year.
the event says Gil Keenan is directing it, so they have a director. He did the movie Monster House. He co-wrote Ghostbusters Afterlife, so now I feel a little bit better. And the description says, after the events in Oklahoma, the Ghostbusters team returns to where it all started, New York City. The Spangler family story continues with a new group of Ghostbusters led by Winston Zeddemore and Ray Stantz. So apparently Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson will be coming back. So that's cool.
Nice.
Excited.
All right. We're not going to talk about the box office numbers this week, except for Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Mm-hmm.
It's finally passed Morbius at the domestic box office.
That is a shame.
It's still in theaters?
No. Everything Everywhere All at Once, it earned $75 million at the box office. I think it was $25 million budget. And of course, Morbius was $73 million with a $75 million budget. So, however, Morbius still has a beat worldwide. I think it's at 167 million versus 112 for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So,
Gotcha.
you know, it just goes to show that a movie that could win every single Oscar almost still might not get as many ticket sales as a Sony banger like Morbius.
Yeah, real banger.
And so for the last piece of news we got here, Jordan Peele's next feature film has been given a Christmas Day 2024 release date. And just like every other Jordan Peele feature film, we don't know anything about it.
Sure.
We don't know who's in it. We don't have a plot. All we know is that Universal is going to produce it, and it's coming out on Christmas Day 2024.
I wonder what the social commentary is going to be.
We have about that. Yeah, maybe it'll be a...
Did we like
Christmas.
Nope? I forget. I know I didn't care for it that much. It was okay.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, I liked it.
Okay. That's fair. No, I mean, he makes good movies. But,
I mean, it's only like his, fourth? This is only his fourth, so...
It would be his fourth, yeah.
I mean, he's been co-producer, director on some other stuff, or helped write on some other stuff, but this is like his fourth solo
feature. Yep.
So we'll see how it goes.
I wonder if he'll never ever do another like comedy movie.
I don't know. He's a funny motherfucker. I miss Key and Peele. That show was so good.
So funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched a movie recently. I don't know if I told you guys about this. I don't even remember the name of it. Fuck. I don't even remember the name of it. But it was a fucking Judd Apatow movie about a bunch of actors like staying at some place during COVID, like during lockdown. And it was like really low budget, but it was so fucking funny. And Keegan was in it. And he was fucking hilarious in it. I don't know. Those guys are hilarious. They should make like a Key and Peele movie or something. What was the movie with the cat?
Was that one Keanu.
Yeah. Oh my God. That movie was so good.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, Keanu was hilarious.
I haven't seen that in a while. I got to go back and watch that shit. That was funny.
Yeah.
So is that it for the news or what?
That's it.
All right. Thank you, Dusty, for the news. Once again, a lot of exciting stuff. Ghostbusters. Oof, man. Give me more. There's also an animated series in the works, too. Co-written by Dan Aykroyd. Big fan. So let's get into today's review. This is Luther. What is it? The Sun... The Fallen Sun. Yeah, Luther, the Fallen Sun. This recently came out on Netflix on March 10th. It is a Netflix exclusive, Netflix original, if you will. And of course, this is based off of the show Luther, the BBC show, the brilliant BBC show that I recently made you watch, Marvin. Not in preparation for this, by the way. I just wanted you to watch the shit because it was great.
Yeah.
And you liked it, right?
Yeah. Okay. I think the earlier seasons were better than the later seasons for sure, but
definitely
overall
agree.
It was great.
Definitely agree.
Overall it was great.
Luther, of course, stars Idris Elba as John Luther. And the series, I just want to go through a little bit of like a rundown of the seasons for anybody who might have not seen the series. But season 1 basically introduces us to DCI John Luther. He's a detective, and he's returning from a suspension after having a nervous breakdown that he had because he allowed a criminal he was chasing basically to fall to his death. Not really death. The guy ends up being in a coma. But it basically introduces you to the type of police officer that Luther is. And he's not a bad guy, but he kind of skirts the lines a little bit to catch his perps. So in season 1, his first case back is a double homicide of a couple that Luther quickly realizes was the doing of their daughter, Alice. And he's unable to prove it. And Alice becomes a reoccurring character in the series. And she's a genius, narcissistic psychopath, basically, who feels pretty proud to have evaded arrest. And Alice and Luther form sort of this like strange, semi-romantic like fascination with one another, which I never really quite understood, to be honest. But it is what it is. And at the end of season 1, Luther is investigating this diamond robbery that he realizes is done by his longtime friend and partner, Ian Reed. And after a bunch of shenanigans and his back is up against the wall, Ian Reed ends up killing Luther's ex-wife, Zoe, who throughout the course of the season he's been trying to like reconcile with. I'm not going to go through the other seasons. That's more or less the character of Luther. The show is basically about him balancing the cop life versus his very tumultuous personal life and how the two interfere with one another very often. But he is
very obsessed with work.
Yeah, he's an obsessive cop, and he's got like a gift. They always talk about it. They even talk about it in the film where he kind of could like tell when somebody's like not being straight up. It's not like a magic power or anything. He's just very perceptive. And but the important part of Luther's character is that he is a how would I even describe him? He's like I said, he just skirts the lines of what's legal.
I would say he's more of a man of justice than a man of the law as a cop.
Yeah,
he will paint outside the lines to get justice when he knows it's right.
Yeah,
versus doing what the law
he's like
says
Batman.
is acceptable.
He is a little like Batman. He
just doesn't have tech.
Yeah, he's Batman without the tech, basically. Yeah,
he really is. Yeah.
And funny enough, this movie opens up with him like being framed like Batman, standing on a fucking building in the middle of London. It's like this pull away shot, like fucking Christopher Nolan directed the shit. Yeah, he's basically sort of a vigilante that like works for the law, essentially.
And I think secretly most people want a man of justice versus a man of the law, because I mean, when you interact with the police, you hope they're men of law and that they're going to follow the rules. But then when you watch these shows and you see cops interact with real pieces of shit criminals, you're like, okay, you could skirt the law a little bit to get this guy. I'm not going to hold it against you, but that's, I think.
Well, it's actually interesting. I recently had a conversation with my boy Ed. Shout out to Ed.
Shout out.
About this very topic in relation to a different character. And the character is the Punisher. Obviously Frank Castle, Marvel's Punisher, who has been the subject of some controversy the last couple of years. And this isn't anything new, but the people in the military and people who are police officers, they've sort of co-opted Punisher's logo, the skull.
100%, yeah.
You see the thin blue line, fucking, you know, the black and blue fucking cop flag on the Punisher logo and all this stuff. And people on January 6th had it on their fucking bulletproof vests and shit. These Proud Boy people.
They were beating up cops. Yep.
Yeah.
Lol.
So Grant Morrison, who was a longtime writer of arguably one of the best Punisher runs ever in the history of the comic book, had some things to say, as did the creator, Jerry Conway, who is the co-creator of the actual character. And both of them had the same message, like, yo, cops, like, you're missing the fucking point with this thing. Like, the police are wearing it because they think they are doling out justice, but that's not what the Punisher does, and that's not who the character is. The Punisher is not a character that one would want to aspire to be. He is a deeply disturbed man who is the byproduct of the failure of the justice system. Frank Castle exists because justice was not properly served.
A broken man with nothing to lose.
Exactly. So both Grant Morrison and Jerry Conway were like, yo, like Jerry Conway was like outraged by this. He's like, I see police and military personnel wearing this. It's like, it's actually outrageous that a person who's a police officer whose sole purpose is to uphold the law is wearing the symbol of a person who does not do that. He does the exact opposite of that. He goes against the law and takes the law into his own hands the way he sees fit.
You think they care about that, bro? They just see a fucking badass dude shooting guns.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they think. They just think
I mean, but
that's it. It ain't.
Yeah.
He was a military man, so there is that
yes, but it's very
bridge. It exists.
Yeah, sure, but it's very clear that these people who wear it think it's like, oh, I'm just wearing this scary skull and I'm being tough and doling out justice. Like, you know, that's what they're thinking. But anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent. I just thought it was funny because it's a very similar thing. What we're talking about, right? Because John Luther is that type of guy. Like, sometimes the law gets in the way or fails. And Luther, while he doesn't go as far as the Punisher, he...
gruesome justice.
Yeah, gruesome justice. Luther has to do things sometimes or he thinks he has to do things to basically arrive at the destination he wants. For instance, in season 5, Luther plants drugs in the apartment of a suspect that he thinks is involved in a murder of a child, but he can't prove it. So he plants the drugs, he calls it in. The police invade her home. They find the drugs, and they also find evidence that she is probably involved in the murder of this kid. So the show has a lot of like... but
that was also just to say, it was also to like gain leverage to help to save somebody else or something. So he uses justice for his own like selfish reasons too, which is kind of weird, but
well, that's what I'm getting at, right? Is like a lot of like moral and ethical gray area in his character. And by the end of the series in season 5, unfortunately it sees our boy Luther get arrested because throughout the course of the show he's being investigated for his ethical issues and all this stuff, and eventually it comes to a head and he gets arrested, and that's where we meet him when the movie Luther Fallen Son opens up. He is in prison, and the movie opens up with like a little look into like an investigation he was doing that's supposed to be during the main investigation of season 5. Like, it was in the background of and you find out very quickly that one of our main characters here, played by Andy Serkis, David Robbie, was the person who like orchestrated all the evidence mounting up against Luther and eventually getting him arrested.
Right.
You're smiling. Did you also think it was stupid and annoying that they did that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't want to be the only one.
Lex Luthor shit.
Yeah. So
I mean, he was fucking James Bond with his fucking... But go ahead. We'll get to that.
Well, that's basically what this movie was. This was like an audition tape for him to play James Bond. Like, let the man play James Bond, because you got fucking secret fucking tundra bases and like
in Norway.
Yeah, in Norway, all sorts of crazy shit going on in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so apparently while Luther was investigating a serial killer in season 5, it turned out that Andy Serkis's character basically set this whole thing up to have Luther arrested for actually no reason. There was no reason ever given as to why David Robbie...
Just to get him out of the way.
Yeah.
I guess. Sure. Yeah.
Right.
And that's basically the plot of this movie. David Robbie, played again by Andy Serkis, brilliantly played by Andy Serkis, despite that ridiculous wig they gave him.
That shit was so stupid, man. It made his head look fucking huge.
Dude, he looked like a fucking like classical fucking pianist or something. Like,
It looked like a fucking bobblehead is what he looked like. That shit was... His head was huge.
Yo, I don't know what that was all about, but despite it, Andy Serkis was very good in the role, I thought.
Yeah.
And he basically plays like a James Bond villain who is orchestrating this. He's just a psychopath, is essentially what it boils down to. And he has orchestrated this, like, this
for no rhyme or reason, though. It's like, what's his motive behind
nothing
wanting to create a murder room?
He even had
don't know.
he even had a James Bond villain monologue for about 10 minutes where he didn't explain anything. That's usually where the villain, like, gets their motivation across and, like, lets you know, like, what the deal is, but he didn't even do any of that. He was just like, I'm crazy. I am connecting with other crazy people. And that's basically it.
We're going to change the world.
Yeah. So, so basically, David Robbie here, right, folks? He has created this deep and intricate network of people who are essentially spying on civilians through all types of electronics: iPads, laptops, phones, PCs, monitors, computers.
Basically, NSA is like Edward Snowden's worst nightmare.
Yeah. And he's tapping into people's personal lives and finding out things about them that he could use to leverage in blackmail. And then with the blackmail, he gets people to do this, like, bizarrely, like, outrageous shit that, like, doesn't really add up to the thing
up to and including suicide.
Well,
I thought that part was interesting because they talked about, like, the fear of being exposed being more powerful than the fear of death. I thought that was cool, but
yeah, it reminded me of that Black Mirror episode. I think it was one of the first episodes where that kid was being blackmailed because he was looking at child porn.
Right.
Remember where he had to go around?
Yeah,
and it turned out he was, like, robbing a bank for the blackmailer, but he was following specific instructions. And that made sense. It's like, oh, yeah, I watched child porn. I don't want that information to get out. My life will be over. Not really knowing that, like, the person blackmailing you is doing some sort of, like, pseudo justice where your life is over anyway because you're robbing a bank and you're going to get caught for it. But in this, they never really give you an explanation for, like, why the people are being blackmailed. It's always just, like, presented as like, oh, I did some really fucked up thing.
Yeah. I guess it's like everyone has a secret maybe that they don't want the world to know, and using that against them it could be a powerful thing. And
I bought it until Archie, played by Thomas Kumbez, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He's one of the detectives working on the case, and it turns out he's a fucking rat, and he's working for the villain the whole time. But at the climax of the movie, when he gets exposed and outed, spoilers, he kills himself, and he's like, the funny thing is, it wasn't even really that bad. And I was like, well, that's the thing. Then what the fuck?
The thing, though. Well, that's the thing, though, because we don't know how long he had been working for this guy. I forget the villain's name. So, David. Like, you do one thing, and it's like, oh, okay, well, he has something else on you now. And then you do another thing, it gets progressively worse. And
is a domino.
And then it's to the point where he's like, I need you to do this teeny tiny thing, which is murdering my fucking wife. So it's like,
or
you can see the build up where it gets worse and worse.
Well, he had that group of people jumping off the buildings. Like, what could you have possibly done that you would kill yourself?
That was like a plot hole for sure.
Well, the first one I bought, the movie opens with that guy, right? Like, meet me here with the fucking thing, and he goes and gets himself kidnapped. But, like, that I buy. It's like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fucking jump off a building, bro. Like, what could I have possibly done that would warrant that?
It would have to be, well...
There are people in this world that have done things that would justify them jumping off a building to keep it a secret.
It was more... It got way more than blackmail, because we saw him he kidnaps the DCI's daughter, and he's about to kill her. So he probably threatens their families.
I guess that, and I also guessed it was like a pile up of blackmail. Like, I'm blackmailing you. I'm starting to blackmail you. I need you to do this thing. And then as you do the things for him, it just becomes more blackmail.
Exactly. It's like a fucking, I got a folder now. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it didn't really make much sense, and they never really explain it. And essentially, David's ultimate plan was he was creating this internet broadcast where he's just killing random people he's kidnapped on a live stream.
In ways that the viewers choose.
Yeah, in ways that but it was specifically set up for, like, other deranged people around the world who like skulk on the dark web and, like, look at all this shit.
Right.
And what were you gonna say?
That live stream setup was so stupid because there's a million cameras around.
Right.
And every person is looking at the same angle. on
Yeah.
the fucking
Yeah,
computer.
one guy was like jerking off while Luther was getting stabbed, and she's like, "Oh, like what the?" It was just so weird and bizarre. But also,
one of the creepiest blackmailing that we found out about with the guy at the tattoo shop, where he was like catfished into basically raping the guy.
well, I was gonna get into that because
Yeah.
it's part of my like issue with this, right? So,
Yeah.
well, also in the film we have Cynthia Erivo. She plays DCI Odette Rain. She's essentially the new Luther in his former department. And
She ain't no Luther.
nah,
She was
she's no
trash.
Luther, but she's a very good actress. I actually recognized
She
her.
is.
I had to look it up. She was in The Outsider, which was an HBO adaptation of a Stephen King
Oh, I
story,
saw that.
which was very
That was
good.
about the
Yeah.
guy that was like I don't know what to call it.
Doppelganger.
He
He
could
could,
like
he could
yeah,
shape.
yeah,
He's a
that's right.
shapeshifter. Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
she
yeah.
was like the medium or whatever in that.
Yep.
But she was very good. But yeah. So the story kicks off, and the killer, David Robbie, sends Luther this like tape of his victim being murdered, and he's like specifically targeting Luther. And if you know the character and have watched the show, Luther's suspects like always like taunt him. That's like part of the show because he's such a
Yeah.
good detective that
because
like,
they know how smart he is. Yeah.
yeah, they like want to outsmart him.
Mhm.
So he gets like a thing, and then he has to get out of jail, and he concocts some sort of scheme to break out so he could like catch the killer. So a large portion of the movie is Odette and the police department. Basically, they're just trying to catch Luther while Luther's trying to catch the villain.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking stupid because it's like, all right, I get it. You like maybe probably broke out of prison, but you're also a really good detective. Let's just let you work with us
Let's
for a
just
bit.
work. Yeah. Like,
And
come
then we'll
on,
throw
dude.
you
Why are
back
we
in
so
jail.
upset? Yeah.
So
You know what's funny? Luther in jail, it was probably like one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Him being in jail and like that fight scene. It wanted me to see him like be a fucking boss guy and mayor of Kingstown. Just
Funny
in the
enough,
prison.
it reminded me of a scene from the Punisher series because Frank Castle's in jail, surrounded by all these people he's like responsible for putting away that he hasn't killed. I just spit all over the place. And like everybody's out to get you, and that's how Luther ultimately breaks out. He's like, just let him come at me, and then you have a reason to transfer me. And during the transfer, he breaks out or gets kidnapped or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Mhm.
And a returning character from the show is our boy Martin Shank, but played by Dermot. Yeah, Dermot Crowley.
Now that was a smart guy. Shink was smart.
Well, I like his
He was-
character because in the show he
Yeah.
starts off as like an adversary to Luther, trying to catch him and put him away. But slowly but
Yeah.
surely he realizes like he's probably not that bad of a guy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciated the cat and mouse of them like
Yeah.
playing. They're playing opposite sides, but still on the same side. They know. He basically realizes that over the course of the seasons that Luther is actually a decent guy.
Yeah.
who's trying to get justice,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's not always legal.
Right.
And so he lets him paint outside the lines, but they have this little cat and mouse game that I thought was
But,
probably the best part of the movie for me was the
yeah,
you
and
know,
and in the movie he is essentially like he knows Luther's going to find the guy like and catch him.
Yeah.
They
they
make
bet
a
on it.
they make a little bet. $20 says that I'll catch him before you catch me, and he's like, oh, make it 50.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But they're still like sharing information and helping each other with resources and stuff. So it's,
yeah.
Yeah.
So like I had mentioned you were talking about Marvin the one blackmailer, which was the guy that worked at like the sex shop, right? And
Yeah.
his blackmail was he had met a guy on the internet who was into like I don't know kinky sex shit. I argue, you know,
Extreme submission.
yeah, extreme
they said,
submissive
yeah.
stuff. So like physical shit, and it turns out that he showed up to some random person who had no idea why this guy was there, and he's getting beaten and shit. And the guy's explaining like, "Oh, he never gave me the safe word," and then I realized like it wasn't really the guy I thought I was talking to. So there were a lot of like the first half of the movie I thought it was pretty cool because like there was
Yeah.
like little plot holes and things here and there, and I was like, all right, it's a 2-hour movie, it's not a full season of a show, I could deal with this. And some of the things were like creepy, like that fire with all the bodies hanging. That was kind of creepy. When he was in the window wearing the fucking that video mask thingy.
Yeah, that was fucked up.
And there was
Showing
some
them
like
their dead children.
yeah, that's fucked
like,
up,
crying
dude.
and shit.
He has a bunch of. There's a point in the movie, folks, where this killer has the parents of missing children, not children, but like their children. They were mostly adults, and they show up to this place having their children been missing for weeks or months or however long. And when they enter the home, they're hearing the screams and cries of their children being killed, but it's recordings. And they're drawn to this room where all their kids are hung. They're dead. And it's like such a sick and twisted fucking thing where it's like, oh my God. So like the movie had a lot of interesting and cool things, but they
Had potential.
had a lot of potential, which is what annoys me the most, because it did not go anywhere. In fact, it goes up and it's like it kind of meanders and then just tanks midway through the movie, and it just becomes a straight up like action movie essentially.
Yeah, there's no real big climactic payoff. It's kind of cheesy actually once you get into the meat and bones of well, he's just crazy and none of it makes any sense.
But by the end of the movie, the villain is chased to his secret base in the middle of nowhere in Norway on this frozen lake. And it's literally a James Bond movie. Luther is chained up and he's being tortured. And there's like these devices that set the building on fire, and like the villain's monologue where he doesn't explain anything, as I said.
Yep.
There's a funny moment though when they're driving down the road to this location. Luther's driving and he's doing like the typical like I'm driving in a movie thing where they're just wildly moving the wheel back and forth. And I need to know, in acting school, what semester is it where you're told to just move the steering wheel
Just
like
wobble
that?
it. Don't go straight.
Dude, it's my biggest pet peeve in movies because like think about
In the
how
olden
fucking
days,
that car would be on the
You're
road.
getting
No.
pulled instantly.
The driving gearbox
You're going to fucking
could
jail.
be pretty loose back on old cars, so driving like this is not all that out of order. I mean, usually you're making adjustments, but yeah, when
So you're saying it could be a callback to old movies?
Well, I think it's just something they did in the old movies because it was more realistic back then to move the steering wheel more.
Okay.
Now that we have better, driving steering wheel gearboxes and shit, it's not not the case, but it still holds to the day. But yeah, I don't know.
Right.
So
I'm just glad that when they all came to rescue him at the end, they were smart enough to bring divers to this place in the middle of nowhere and pull him out of the lake.
I don't understand how they even knew where he was because they specifically said they weren't going to tell anybody.
No, the wife told Martin when Martin ambushed the rat cop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
makes
Luther's
sense
ace
then.
in the hole.
Got it.
But
okay.
yeah, so this actually the further this movie got in, like the deeper I got into the movie, I realized this was basically just a reimagining of the season 3 villain, who was that vigilante guy. Remember, he was killing people on tape and doing the live streams. You guys remember that?
People on tape.
Yeah, he was the vigilante who killed Luther's partner in season 3.
Yeah. Okay.
He was going around with the shotgun.
Yep.
And he had an actual good vigilante motivation. Obviously, you don't do that sort of thing. You don't kill people. But his wife was fucking assaulted and killed years prior. And he thought that the law failed him. So he became a vigilante. He was going around killing scumbags. So he thought that was an interesting and compelling character.
Yeah.
But he was filming it and doing live streams. And what was cool about that is he actually got society's approval, essentially, because he was killing criminals.
Yeah.
Yep.
So people were on his side. So
He
Luther
pulled a
was
Dexter.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. So they just like sort of redid that, but in a way, way worse way. It's just like, oh, I'm a giga psychopath and I'm uniting other psychopaths to watch this. It's like, okay.
It felt all over the place. It did definitely have some elements of Skyfall to it. The James Bond movie where he goes back to his home and
Yeah.
It had lots of elements of everything. Like it had elements of the Joker from the Batman, the second Batman, Christian Bale's Batman series. It let the people decide the fate. I don't know. It calls to everywhere, really.
It really just felt like watching a season of the show, but having skipped like an episode or two. Because they set up a lot of these plot points and they establish a lot of things that just really don't go anywhere. And if you're a fan of the show, you would know that like part of what's fun about the show is the skill of John Luther and how he assesses these cases and figures things out and then tries to like find a workaround to like bring the person to justice. And there was like none of that in this movie. It was just like he instantly, for no reason whatsoever, figured everything out about this guy. He knew,
he just knew.
He knew what he was doing. There was that one phone call. He's like, I think he's like blackmailing people for something. They must have secrets. And it's like, based on what? You just got out of prison, bro. Like, how do you know this?
Yep. No connection.
Premonition.
So
the good
like,
thing about the show was he actually had to rely on his coworkers a lot of times to find information and do the actual like tech
Police
type
work.
of work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But in this, it's like he had that, but he didn't. We didn't see any of that communication. He just had the information.
And at the start of the movie, like I said, I was like, all right, yeah, some of this I can let go. It's fine. Like, I get it. It's 2 hours. They got to get through the plot. But then by the time it all adds up, you're like, wait a second. He figured out this whole thing based on nothing. No, there was nothing that led him to any of the things that he determined. Not who the killer was.
He was given a piece of paper with a radio frequency.
That was it.
And that's all it took.
And he figured everything out. He figured out what the killer was doing, why he was doing it, who his fucking relatives were, what his name was, where he was hiding. Like, he figured out everything, and they didn't explain a single thing, and they didn't explain the killer's motivation.
Yep.
I need Joe Biden to just pass a bill into law that says Netflix is no longer allowed to make original content, because they've been putting out like consistent, like actual shit. The only saving grace to this movie, honestly, is the fact that the three main characters, well, four, were really good in it. Idris Elba was very good. Cynthia Erivo was very good. Andy Serkis was fucking great, despite his like cartoonish fucking villain character and like the dialogue he was given. And
he was also a master like knifesman.
Yeah,
apparently.
he was fucking doing all sorts of shit. Ah, man.
This guy had everything.
Pour one out for the homie, what was his name? Jerome? Or whatever, the cop that
I don't know
fucking
what his name was.
the dumbass fucking cop that just like beat the shit out of Luther and then died because of it. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, like
that's UK though. They try to actually bring people in alive.
Yeah. the acting was, yeah, I mean, okay, I won't make the joke, but
sorry,
you know what I'm thinking. No, the acting was really good. Like Dermot Crowley as well. I thought the acting was really good. It's just the writing was like really fucking bad. And it really, at the end of the day, it just wasn't Luther. Like, you know,
at first it was in jail
for the first half, like for the first half hour to 45 minutes
to the base, right? Oh
no, way before that.
Up until the square, when they went to that square.
Yep, that was the turning point in the movie. That was it. It became just an action movie at that point.
Yeah,
and not even really a good action movie, to be honest.
Almost at the point where, when he figured out, when he went and talked to the dude at the brothel or whatever about the radio signal.
Yeah.
And the police showed up. It's pretty much.
Yeah, that's about right.
I was like, this is going to be one of those movies.
Because you know what, though? It sucks because it's an interesting premise. Like Marvin said, like one of the cool things about the show is that he has to rely a lot on his partners and his coworkers and like people who are skilled in different areas. You had the tech guy for like 2 seasons of the show who like
rip him.
Yeah, rip him. You had fucking his partner Ripley, who was like loyal to the fucking core. Yeah, rip everyone.
Everyone around Luther dies. They said it.
He even had to rely on Alice, the fucking narcissistic psychopath, for certain things. Rip her.
Rip her.
So like,
shit.
That was one of the cool things about the show. And I thought going into this, I was like, oh man, like he has none of his tools to rely on. All he has to rely on is himself, and like that's it. He doesn't even have a fucking gun because he broke out of jail. And it had like the makings of a very, very cool and interesting story that just I don't know what happened, but it was just
they just made the boss too big.
Yeah, I mean, it
He
could
was
have been a
too
good
big. He was
noir
too powerful.
detective
Yeah,
movie, but
he was too powerful. Yeah, he really was. He
was.
Yeah,
Like,
they
it was
turned
crazy.
it into 80s
They had-
80s James Bond.
They really did.
there's no
Sure.
way they would have been able to have solved that if this guy is as smart as the way they were portraying him in the movie.
I mean, yeah,
Especially without resources, there's no way. So he just had to know. Otherwise,
yeah. There's no other way. He just had to know. Default no. That's my main takeaway. It wasn't Luther. So if you're a fan of the show and you're going into this thinking like, oh man, I missed the show, fucking got a movie, like, don't even bother, dude. Save yourself the 2 hours because you will be disappointed.
Did you enjoy the Deadwood movie, Dan?
Didn't see it. You've asked me this like 36 times.
Oh.
I've never even watched the show Deadwood.
Oh, you've never seen the
No,
show?
no,
Oh,
no.
You're missing out. Jesus.
I actually saw Deadwood. It was good.
Isn't it a
I
Western?
didn't see the
Did you
movie.
watch the movie? No.
I didn't see the movie. No.
This makes me a little bit worried because the Deadwood movie wasn't as good as the show. It was all right. The Luther movie, not as good as the show. It was all right. And now we've got the Justified movie coming out, which I
Oh
was
God,
big
there's a
fan of
trend
the show.
here.
So
And the Monk movie. That's why I said I'm a little
The
Right.
Monk movie,
You're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
a little tepid.
So
Lower those
the whole-
expectations, bro.
the show to movie to just bring the cast back together because it's too much to actually do a season because shooting episodes is 10-hour days. It's a lot
Mhm.
more intensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
get the movie done. You're done with it. You made a little bit of money, but sometimes it feels like
Well,
they're just cashing in on a name and they're not actually telling a good story. And
I would have
that's
agreed with you,
unsettling.
but this movie clearly had a big budget. It had a way bigger budget than the series. You could tell.
Well,
They brought in two. They brought in.
Netflix throws money at things.
I get it, but
I do love this. Yeah, I do love some of the shots in this movie.
that's
for
why
sure.
I don't understand why, like, what happened. Because you have the
Yeah.
budget, you have enough money to bring in Andy Serkis, you bring in another pretty big
Right.
actress, Cynthia. I mean, she's not as big as those two, but she's another name that you have to pay, not just some British actor from like British television, right?
Right.
You like,
Well,
like,
whoever pitched the show to Netflix and got the deal was either too controlling and didn't know what they were doing, or not controlling enough and they let other people ruin it.
Well,
by
it's
throwing
directed
just
by
random
Jamie
shit in it.
Payne, who has directed a few episodes of the show. It was written by
Huh.
Neil Cross, who wrote the show. It says based on the BBC television series. I can't actually see like writing credits, so somebody could maybe correct
Okay.
me. But I'm pretty
So
sure
some
the
people
original.
tied to the show.
No, I'm pretty sure the original writer wrote this. So that's why I'm like baffled at what happened because it had
Interesting.
it had little bits and crumbs of things that could have been great, but I almost want to say they Americanized it a little bit too much.
Well,
No,
they
I'm being
movie
serious.
no,
No,
they
they
because
just
they couldn't.
Yeah, they just
They couldn't put it in a series and stretch it out and make it all make sense. So they cut and they cut and it's like the Snyderverse. The cut version doesn't make any sense and it's a terrible movie. You can watch the longer one and it's a little bit better because it makes more sense. But
You think that's what happened? I wouldn't even give them that much credit. I really
know.
think they're like, let's make this for stupid Americans
that's plausible.
because there's just like chases and fights and things that make no sense. And it's like BBC TV hits diff, bro. I like Luther is, I told
Yeah.
Marvin this before he started watching. I'm like, don't expect it like an American show because it's not like that. Even the
Boy
way
was
it's
amazing.
structured. Sometimes you're watching it, you get a half-hour episode. Next episode's fucking 2 hours. You're like, what the fuck? Like, it's just different TV.
Yeah.
And this was, it just felt more Americanized to me. I don't know what happened, but it is just not the show.
That's one thing where Netflix did do a good job because Top Boy was a BBC show and it was like 2 or
Fuck
3
Netflix.
seasons, I want to say. And then it nothing ever happened and Netflix picked it up a couple of years later. And they actually made it take place like where one of the kids in the original show was like grown up now and he took over.
Forget
Really good show.
shows.
It's
Forget
on
sh-
BBC and Netflix.
Forget shows. Talking about movies, Netflix's original content, for every 10 original movies they put out, like one is decent. Like I told you the
Yeah.
other night, I watched We Have a Ghost, and it wasn't a good movie by any stretch, but I enjoyed it. It was a fun movie.
Yeah. It was entertaining watch.
Yeah,
Not worth
exactly.
much talking about.
That's kind of
Right.
Netflix's model, though, right? They just
Yeah.
pump out a bunch of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
One
And
of 'em sticks.
sometimes something sticks,
And
right?
then Stranger Things just pulls in.
Yeah,
it's
it
the
blows
cash
everything
cow.
out.
I
of
don't
the
know
water.
what they're gonna do after the 5th season of Stranger Things.
Hey,
They're gonna
they'll do a
probably lose a lot
spin-off.
of subscribers.
I don't know what they're gonna do, but this was not it. This is getting shit on IMDb. The score doesn't reflect it, but if you look at through the reviews, as it's mostly British people, and they are like 1 out of 10s down across the board. It's got a 6.4 overall on IMDb.
That's generous.
That is generous. I would give this like a 5.5. If that, I would give it a 5. I would give it a 5.5. You're giving it a 6?
No,
I give it a
5.5.
6.
Yeah,
6 isn't great. So.
It's worth a watch if you're bored, but don't expect to be blown away by it.
I was so disappointed.
If you like the show and watch the show.
Yeah, listen, if you've
There's
watched...
going to be a little bit of disappointment, but yeah.
Little bit?
It adds nothing.
It adds
to
nothing.
What we know.
I'm so
Luther.
glad. It adds nothing to the
You
lore.
just get to see Luther again. That's all it is. It's nostalgia.
Yeah.
This is
It's just
nostalgia.
like fan service. It's just like...
Yes,
But even the fan
100%.
service made no sense. Like there was the one moment, like his jacket obviously is a thing, but he's wearing it in like
the car
Tundra.
reveal was cool.
The car reveal, but
Yeah.
it's like, would he keep it in a back alley for however long he was in jail? Like it made no sense. They really just treated him like Batman. That's basically what they did. And I can't endorse this. If you've watched the show, I told my friend George, because George turned me on to Luther. He was like, "Yo, you got to watch Luther." And I messaged him as soon as I finished the movie. I'm like, "Dude, do not watch this." He's like, "It sucks. That's terrible." I'm like, "No, it doesn't suck, but it's not very good, and it's just not Luther. It's really what it is."
Yeah.
It's not Luther.
Like if you don't know the character, if you never watched the show, and you're bored one night, you turn this on, you might be like, that was all right. But if you've watched the show, just absolutely do not watch this. You will be severely disappointed. I'm so disappointed. I actually really don't even know how I'm just, it's just not even worth your time. That's all I got to say.
Shambles.
That's it. It really is not good. So yeah, that's that. I don't know. You guys have any final thoughts on Luther, the Fallen Son? Even the fucking title doesn't make sense. The Fallen
It's a
Son.
cash grab.
Spelled S-U-N. What cash though? It's Netflix.
That feels like a
Well, it's a
Superman
cash grab
Red Sun
for.
ripoff.
I mean, they had to pay the director and the writer.
For those guys, sure.
So shouts out to them. They got some cash from it.
Yeah, good for you guys. Yeah. What'd you say,
I feel
Dusty?
It feels like a Superman Red Sun kind of ripoff.
But even the sun doesn't make sense because why is the sun falling? The fallen sun, S-U-N. What about this movie? Look at Marvin. That'd be a good. I'm making that the
Fallen
thumbnail.
Sun.
That's gonna be the
I
thumbnail
don't
for
know.
this video.
I don't know.
And instead of whatever. There you have it, folks. There's our
Sky is
thoughts on
falling.
Luther, the Fallen Son. If you've watched it, let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't watched it, please stay away from it. Don't even bother.
Give it a go if
can't
you're
recommend
bored.
this
Come
one.
on.
No,
Give it,
you said you liked it too, by the way, Dusty. I just want to point that out when you watched, or was it Marvin? One of you wrote in Discord like,
yeah, that was before I got to the
5.5.
square.
Worth a watch.
That was
Oh,
before I got to this. I told you I was halfway through with it,
I don't remember that part. But
and
I
that was
remember-
before the square scene.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm not like you, Dan. If it's not a 6, I'm not saying this is shit. Never watch it. If you're bored,
No, but come on, dude.
it's worth a watch. There's a lot worse movies I could recommend.
Listen to me.
that are
Even
worth
as a
watching
fan,
than this.
even as a fan of the show, you would recommend people go watch this. You're doing them a disservice.
Hey, at least it doesn't ruin your thoughts of the character like they did when they brought back Dexter. Dexter New
Yeah.
Blood was terrible and ruined, like,
That's
it was
fair.
a disservice to the character. At least this wasn't like a disservice to Luke.
Yeah.
It's
really.
mostly nostalgia, and the story itself is not that great, but it's not a terrible. It's not terrible.
It's
So,
not a
yeah,
di-
it's worth a watch.
It's-
What do you
it's-
want from me?
It's not a disservice to Luther in that it adds nothing nor subtracts anything. It was so bad it did literally nothing.
It just did nothing. Yeah,
It did
that's
nothing.
true.
It didn't even do a bad thing to the character.
Well, we saw him get out of jail.
Okay. Oh, all right. So fine. It ends with
he's
like
free.
a possible setup for
He's
like
free.
another movie or another
And even
season.
that was
Made no
that felt
sense.
like too extreme.
What was it?
for
The
Luther.
government? Who were those
We've never
people?
seen any. We've never seen Luther have. He's always had
SEAL Team
connections,
6.
but
Not like that.
we've never seen that type of like.
He's
But who were they?
MI6
it's like
now.
superhero type
He's
shit. It's just
MI6
not
now. What are you
Luther,
talking
bro.
about?
Were
He's
they
a spy.
MI6?
Yeah.
Is that what that
Pretty sure
was?
that's-
I didn't know
I
what
don't
it was.
fucking know. It's a fucking garbage guy.
I
They were
almost
basically
basically
thought,
at the end. They were like, "Yeah,
That's
you're
what I
MI6 now."
I
Yeah,
thought it
no.
was the mob guy coming back from season 3 and 4.
No,
That-
no. It
No,
wasn't
he
him. It
he
wasn't
proved.
him.
No,
he
I know it
proved
wasn't,
enough
but I
that
thought it was at first.
He gets to be
Yeah,
a
yeah.
special agent now. He was,
Sure,
you know,
whatever. yeah.
against the grain enough, but still
Yeah.
about the law and
Right.
about justice.
Mhm.
He's a
Yeah, and
secret
next
agent,
week-
secret agent Luther coming to a movie theater near you.
Yeah, 2 months from now,
Ooh.
Dusty's going to report. So, in Netflix news, there will be no further Luther productions because it got watched by 2 people. Actually, yeah.
No further BBC productions.
Three.
Yeah,
You can watch
BBC's
that.
just getting
No more
shut down.
crossovers.
Nah, this was some old bullshit, bro. Fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
sick of it. Anyway, we're getting out of here, folks. Thanks for listening or watching on whatever platform you happen to be on. We appreciate you. And tune in next week to see what we're talking about, because I don't even remember. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome.
But until then, we'll catch you.
See you.